What is going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 91 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we're breaking down UFC Fight Night 50 or UFC Vegas 54. We got Jan Blachowicz, former champion. He's taking on Alexander Rakic, uh, up and comer contender, looking to get into championship contention here. This week you got me, John, and MMA Fox, Luke at SWR underscore betting, and Lags at Danny underscore Lags. Guys, if you're stressed about the market, you shouldn't be. Last week, we gave out not one, but two max bets on the card, and they both cashed. We had Carlo Esparza in the snoozer of the century at Big Dog Money, and we had the under in Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. And, well, that one cashed easily. Carlo, not so much. That almost gave me a fucking heart attack. But anyway, yeah, we got some hits this week. Honestly, I don't hate this card. Like, even though it's like low on name value, it should be pretty entertaining. What do you guys think? Luke, what are your thoughts on it?
I think from a general perspective, I think it's pretty fun. Currently only have like 3 bets up, might have maybe 1 or 2 more. So I don't like love it from a betting perspective, to be honest. I think there's a lot of volatility, a lot of really interesting style matchups. So yeah, we'll see.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, kind of similar. I only have 4 bets on the card so far. I think it's actually pretty good name value wise, but like in terms of betting wise, like Luke touched on, I don't find myself liking a ton of spots. I think there's a ton of volatility in a lot of the matchups. So yeah, fun to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of bets on this card, and I'll probably be adding more. I mean, but you guys know me.
Yes,
I love
yes.
swinging into volatility. That's just how I like it here. We're playing craps out here. But yeah, we'll hop
This
into
is your
it
type
here.
of card, John.
It is my
Yes.
type of card, and hopefully we'll keep the streak going. We could use, Lord knows, my bank account could use a couple extra zeros in it. Yeah, we'll jump right in. 11 fight card, pretty short one. I don't understand why they're doing a 10 p.m. start time for this, but so be it. But we'll jump right in. We got Nick Maximoff, Andre Petrovsky. Maximoff's a big favorite here. He's minus 400, I believe. It's kind of odd for a guy who was lined minus 110 with Carl Roberson to be minus 400 here. But with that said, I don't totally disagree with it. I was kind of in the fade Maximoff camp in his first fight. I didn't bet him in his second fight, and I wish I had in hindsight. But like, I get what people don't like about Nick Maximoff. He doesn't seem like the best athlete, but he's a really good wrestler, man. And, he's the kind of guy, he's just going to continue to go for it. Like, the guy limits standing exchanges like crazy. He's very good at staying all the way out or all the way in. And those kind of guys, especially at 185, you have a guy who's going to attempt 12, 13, 14 takedowns in a fight. They're a dime a dozen. And so I'm pretty bullish on Maximov long-term in the UFC. He's a good submission grappler. He's a good wrestler. He's very high level. Like, if you look at his fight with Puna last fight, Puna was doing a pretty good job at defending the takedowns. Maximoff just better at cutting the angle around him, varies his takedowns fairly well. I like what I see from Nick Maximoff. And he's taking on Andre Petrovsky, who in a 1-round fight, I certainly wouldn't have plus 300. Like, the guy is like a good wrestler and he is a good athlete. He's probably the better athlete here. But the bottom line is, there are some guys, and we'll talk about someone similar to this later, where I think their cardio issues can be overstated. But with Petrovsky, I don't really think so. Like, I know he beat Hugh Yazong in round 3 in his last fight, but Yazong is like one of the worst fighters in the history of the UFC. Like, it's very easy to not gas out with no resistance. It's very different having to fight a grappling heavy fight for 15 minutes. And yeah, like, I think Maximov is the better wrestler and the better grappler, but Petrovsky's strong enough and athletic enough. He can keep this competitive early. I just think with the pace that Maximov is literally a lock to push here, Petrovsky basically has to get him out of there in round 1. And it's like, I don't put it happening in much of a clip. I haven't played it, but I kind of think the under is interesting here because Petrovsky, very reliable gasser. He is subbable. We saw Brian Battle sub him, and Nick Maximov certainly is a much better submission grappler than Brian Battle is. And look, bottom line is Petrovsky's most likely outcome in a win is an early finish here. So I think under is a decent look. Luke, what do you think?
Honestly, like, I'm still somewhat flirting with actually taking a small shot on Petrovsky just based on the fact that I think he can be competitive early in this fight. But at the same time, it has all the makings of one of those trap by the number spots. Whereas I do think the line on Maximoff is wide. Like I just categorically don't think he should be minus 400 in this type of fight. I don't.
Fair.
But at the same time, it's hard to bet on a gasser at the same time, because to your point, the guy's going to go, at least in relation to Max, he's going to go out there and he's going to shoot a ton of takedowns. We know that the guy's cardio is reliable. He's a good wrestler. And even though I think Petrovsky, at least on paper, is actually maybe the better wrestler than Maximoff, we haven't seen really aggressively wrestled at all. And we've seen this dude huffing and puffing, after 2 minutes in range striking based affairs. So I don't think his cardio holds up under this dynamic of a fight, which is why I'm probably not going to do it. And I'd probably look more so to like Maximoff late props, because even his inside the distance line, I think, is right around evens, which I still don't think is great. Like, I don't think you're extracting a ton of value out of that. But I do just have kind of this sneaky thing in my head where, we have seen stronger wrestler grappler archetypes, go out there and stand for extended minutes. Now, do I necessarily think that's what's going to be the case here? Probably not, but it has happened before. And what I will definitively say, if these two guys stand, Maximoff is not 80% in a fucking striking match here. Like, he's just not, right? So ultimately what I'm getting to is I would not recommend chucking Maximoff in your parlays. I would not recommend laying 400 on. There's no value on it. I think it's a negative E play. Do I think he wins the fight at a moderate clip? Yes, because of the gas tank consideration, but I guess I'm just really sounding like a Petrovsky truther here, which is not what I'm trying to get at. My point is, like,
you're a Maximoff truther, aren't you?
I am a Maximoff. I've been a big Maximoff guy overall, but my point is that, I mean, Petrovsky hasn't been aggressively wrestled. At the same time, we haven't seen Petrovsky really out wrestled before. So it's like, what does that, really even look like? Necessarily. It's not like we can point to this fight and this fight and this fight and this fight and say, okay, this is how he looks here. Like, we just don't have that data. So for me to sit there and get to like 400 on a guy, I mean, I can't really do it. Once again, I think it's a trap on Petrovsky, though. If you are to take it, most likely it's Maximoff, late grind, better cardio, better durability, more consistent to push a pace, but it's one of those weird fights, man. I'm just probably going to stay off.
I guess my question to you, and again, I agree. You definitely don't lay Maximoff 400, but it's like what I can't get to, and how much I love playing big dogs. It's like, what exactly does a Petrovsky win look like? Like that's other than like, a flash KO or something.
I think a Petrovsky KO looks like greasy split. He puts up a ton of resistance to early takedowns because Maximoff can shoot from far out. He stuffs those ankle picks. He can potentially in the first round, close striking, seconds close where he still has gas. And then now you're fucking holding on to your goddamn chair, hoping the guy survives in the third when he's got nothing left. That's what I would see a Petrovsky win looking like.
Yeah, fair. Blags, what are your thoughts?
I guess I'm not going to add a ton because I kind of just think, again, the Maximoff kind of takes over with the grappling, the pace. Because I just think, Petrovsky is pretty much round one or bust, just considering how bad his cardio really is. So again, like you touched on, I was looking at the under. FanDuel has the under 2.5 at plus 140, which is interesting. But I was actually looking also, DraftKings has Maximoff round 2 at 5-1 and then round 3 at 10-1.
I don't like those prices though. Those aren't.
I know because those are like your average. Yeah. That's the issue.
Because you're 10-1. You're what, at like 9%, which that might be value. I don't know. I feel like round props are so hard to like put an accurate number on. So it's
and Luke touched it on a great. The inside the distance really isn't much either. It's like I think it's plus 140 in most spots. So it's like I think you're splitting hairs there also. So
I think you should just pass the fight.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. Moving on, we're going to break it down again. We got Carlos Candelario taking on Tatsuro Taura. Candelario is still a big dog, though not quite at the price I got him last time. Well, now he is. But when I bet him this week, he was not. I bet him at plus 190, and somehow, after getting CLV in the first iteration, I've gotten reverse CLV on it this time. But yeah, I bet Carlos Candelario. I broke it down 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Basically, look, Rolando Candido couldn't submit him. I don't think Taura has as good jiu-jitsu as Candido does. I think Candelario is clearly the better wrestler here. I think he has a chance to get top time. I think he can survive if he gets his back taken. And on the feet, I just don't think Taura is that dangerous a striker. And I think Candelario's pace is probably going to be his advantage. I think it's a close fight. I think there's a lot of questions about Taura. I'm happy to take the big dog shot on Candelario. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, right there with you. I haven't made any official play yet. I did play him in the previous iteration. Actually, I think I'm probably going to actually get a slight better price than I did the first time. I think he's at like 205. So, I mean, it's like, 5-10 cents or whatever potentially. But yeah, I mean, you hit on all the main points. There's not a ton to break down here outside of the fact it's that I'm a gambler personally who's willing to take shots into unknowns against people at big plus numbers. And you got a guy who's 23 years old coming from the Japanese regional scene who's running through a bunch of bums, who's faced no adversity. What happens when he faces any adversity, whether that's striking, whether that's grappling, we really have no fucking idea at all. And so to put that guy, damn near close to 75% implied to win a fight, I'm not sure. It's one of those spots, though, where, yeah, he could go out there, take Candelario's back. Candelario's back's been taken multiple times. He could just be the better submission grappler, go out there, sub him, roll him, and we look like, dipshits, come next week. But it's like, it's one of those fights where I look at it more so not in terms of the individual fight, but the individual spot, right? Like long term, yeah. Where is this spot? Like an unproven fighter coming in at this price point, are you making money laying minus 260 on these type of fighters? You're just not. I can categorically say that you're just not. Not saying you have to bet Candelario necessarily if that's not necessarily your style, but for me, I'm willing to take those smaller shots against the unproven guys. So I will be on Candelario in some capacity at some point.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, I think I ran out the trio again. Like I have a unit on Candelario, same as before, plus 210 now. I guess
everybody got a good number except me.
So
that's
cool.
Well,
I guess so the first time I think I got plus 215. But yeah, I would say I'm going smaller this time only because he was the one that pulled out with the illness 2 weeks ago. And it's like, yeah. I mean, Luke kind of broke it down, and there's a ton of questions really here. I mean, Taura's standing. The guy's kind of single shot, doesn't throw in volume, doesn't have a ton of combos really. His wrestling is not that great. Like you touched on, John, I think Candelario is probably the better wrestler here. I just think it's a gritty, close fight. Candelario can compete everywhere, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, we have an interesting one here. We got Verna Jandiroba. She's coming off of a loss to Amanda Ribas, taking on Angela Hill, who's coming off of being robbed against Amanda Lemos. Rip. That was fun. Verna's minus 170. Luke, what do you think?
I've been, riding this Hill decision train for like years now, and it just has not turned out to be a profitable angle, albeit I think it's one of those weird fights here. Come out the Twitter pitchforks or whatever. Oh, Mr. Value, call him Mr. Value on your losing bets. I think I've so much value on Angela Hill by decision. She's for I bet her by decision against Cutaiba. I bet her at 550 against. I bet her against Lemos at 550 by decision, and a couple other fights as well. Like even I think actually against Watterson, I bet her by decision at a healthy plus number as well. I think she won that fucking fight. So Angela Hill has not made me any money, but I think I've gotten excellent prices and I made good reads on all their fights. It just has not come through. This is a very interesting one, though, and why I've historically been willing to back Hill in fights is because it hasn't been from an overt wrestling threat with consistency, which is what I think she's going to face here from Verna Jandiroba. Do I think Verna Jandiroba is a great MMA-based wrestler? No, but she is persistent with them. Angela Hill does stuff at a good percentage. I do think Angela Hill is going to put up resistance in this fight, but where my problem comes is if she is grounded, right? Because if you look at the long track record of Angela Hill, she's fought a lot of good girls in there, right? But she hasn't fought a ton of really sound, good submission grapplers overall. And I rate Verna Jandiroba personally as a pretty sound submission grappler, right? So if she's able to get into top positions in this fight, I think she is incredibly live to submit Angela Hill. Angela Hill has been submitted twice in the UFC at the end of the day, and I think Virna Jandiroba is going to maximize her win equity. But at the same time, am I one of the people who are out there betting up Virna Jandiroba on the money line? No, I'm not, because I do think Angela Hill is going to put up resistance to those takedowns. And when this fight is standing, Angela Hill is going to beat the living shit out of Virna Jandiroba when this fight is standing, right? So it's a really weird dichotomous dynamic where I think you can make value-based cases for Hill, right? But it's like, I just don't have confidence necessarily that she can survive the ground with Jandiroba. Like I said, Hill could go out there and stuff, 8 of 10 takedowns, but what happens on the one? What happens on the second? I'm just really not sold there, and I'm not getting like a gigantic number next to Angela Hill. So actually my sneaky take for this fight is I have some interest in violence on the under 2.5 around plus 200. I think Jandiroba is live to sub her, and we have seen Virna Jandiroba, on the ropes by Amanda Ribas. Her striking defense sucks. We saw her hurt by Mackenzie Dern, who we know who is not a good striker. So if it's a scenario where Virna is not able to get those takedowns and Angela Hill is consistently stuffing, we know Angela Hill is going to land nearly 6 significant strikes per minute. She's going to put it on girls. She's hurt girls. She even hurt, Ashley Yoder. She dropped Claudia Gadelia. She hurt Amanda Lemos. So despite, her not being a perennial KO artist and us thinking of her as this quasi decision machine, if Virna can't land these takedowns, she is going to get her fucking ass kicked. I think there's very real scenarios of standing TKO, elbows, cut stoppage scenario here. Flip side, once again, if Virna is able to get takedowns, I think she's incredibly live to sub Hill. So if I am to bet this fight, I'm actually going to go violence, and I'm gonna take a shot on the under 2.5 if the fight doesn't go around 33%.
Lex, how about you?
This is a weird fight, to be honest with you, because I think going through the tape, I was kind of coming through the same sentiments. Like, I think Virna's probably going to be able to land a takedowns, be able to get that top control, probably find a sub. But it's like she's so, like, optically, it's so bad for her on the feet. The volume's not there striking at all. She's super hittable. So, like, I think Angela can make this a close fight. But it's like, I think the takedowns are going to be there for Virna as well. So it's like, if you're playing Virna money line, or I would say if you're playing on the Virna side, I think I'd rather play the Virna inside the distance or Virna sub personally, because I think it's just going to be sweaty and I wouldn't want to be holding that minus 180 ticket. But from a whole, I'm just passing.
Yeah, I'm passing as well. I would have played Virna at minus 140 when it was there, but I missed that line before I taped it. I guess for me, the problem is, like, I can see, like, I agree, Luke, with most of your take here. Like, I bet Ribas against Virna, and it was funny hearing people say how Virna was going to compete standing there. But Virna's a bad striker, man. People got the wrong impression because she fought Mackenzie Dern and Kanaka Murata. Like, Angela Hill is miles ahead of those women, and she's going to light her up here. The problem for me is really, I don't even think Hill has, like, bad takedown defense per se. I think she has reasonably good takedown defense. It's what happens when she ends up on bottom. Like, I have such a hard time unseeing her getting mounted by Ashley Yoder like 2 fights ago. It's just like, how does that happen? A fight she was dominating and suddenly she's being mounted by the spider monkey. Like, what is going on? It's just like, because it's like, I'll bet Hill and it'll look like a great bet for 4 minutes or 5.5 minutes. And then Virna gets one takedown and suddenly she's on her back. And it's just like, well, fuck, how did I not see this coming? And that's kind of the dynamic here. Because it's like, I do think there is some scope for Hill to fight competitively or even win this fight. But it's just like, I do think Virna at some point is going to get takedowns. And it literally might only take one for this fight to be over. And I do sort of think a Virna takedown is probably around here. It's hard for me to see. I shouldn't say it's like, I can imagine Hill getting up, I guess. She did against Claudia, but it's like Claudia was checked out by the time she fought her, if we're being honest.
And Claudia only has 1 round of gas.
Yeah, exactly. And Virna's like a serious grappler, man. Like, you look at her fight with, like, her having basically going to a split decision with Carla Esparza. I mean, not many women out-scramble Carla in the manner that Virna did. Yeah, I just can't get there on Angela. I actually don't mind the undershot because I kind of agree. If like Hill can stuff shots early, she has had a bit of a mean streak in her recently, even in the Lemos fight. Like she put some serious oomph on those knees and elbows in the clinch. Like she could really hurt Verna, and I don't think Verna reacts to shots great. But when you have a grappling edge to this degree, it's like how can I really, fade them at this number? I would need a much bigger one. So it's a pass for me. But I hope Angie wins. I like her. So
well,
moving on.
What is crazy though, they have DK has a Hill by KO and 9-1.
It's not crazy. It might be better than her decision, to be honest with you. Honestly, I think Hill decision is
it's
pretty
2-1.
Narrow margins, right? No, I just mean
in general too. Yeah.
Yeah, like for Hill to win a decision, it means she has to shut Verna out on the mat pretty much, and that I just don't really see that happening.
Right.
Moving on though, we have a hilarious fight. Lags, I'll let you take it away. We got Michael Johnson. He's coming back. He's fighting Alan Patrick, coming off of one of the better, more epic quit jobs of our time against Mason Jones. What are your thoughts on this fight?
What I will say is this is my like Camacho Torres of the week. Like this is my kind of fight because to me, I feel like I know Patrick doesn't have. He's old. I know his cardio is not great, but the guy's going to push a wrestling pace that I just don't think Johnson's gonna like to deal with here. So I don't know. To me, this is more of a dogger pass. I think that's my take. I know it's a dumpster fire, but I would lean more dogger pass here.
I don't hate your take, Lags. I actually am honestly considering the shot on Alan Patrick, and it makes me sick because like my initial read this week before I taped it was, oh my God, Michael Johnson's going to fucking butcher this dude. And I still kind of think that that's the case. But, like, I know it's easy to see the Mason Jones fight and be like, fuck, this dude's done. But, like, Mason Jones is so much of a better grappler than Michael Johnson and so much more physical. Mason Jones is the kind of guy, if you bring the fire to him, he's happy to bring it right back to you. Bobby Green, same deal. Bobby Green's a very good grappler, and he's also very happy to engage it where you want the fight to go. Michael Johnson is like, he needs a beautiful game to win. He wants the fight to be on the outside, let him throw his 1-2s, let him get his good boxing going. When things start to get dirty, Michael Johnson just tends to collapse. I bet Michael Johnson against Darren Elkins. Oof. I believe I bet him against Thiago Moises. Oof. I had him parlayed against Stevie Ray. I did learn my lesson for the Gita fight, but like this kind of reminds me of that because Alan Patrick is huge for 55, and he's not going to sit there and box with MJ. Like that's not going to happen. He's going to try to grapple him. If he can't, he might die here. Although Johnson hasn't KO'd anybody since 2016, so it's like I don't even know how likely that is. And Clay Guida, I love Clay Guida. We all lost money on Clay Guida recently. But, like, Clay Guida is not a great control grappler. Yeah.
Fuck that, dude. Oh, my God.
But Clay took this fucking dude's back, man, for a round. Like, Clay Guida is not, like, this hyper jiu-jitsu guy who is known for going out there and shutting guys down, with back takes. I don't know. I just have this feeling that Patrick is the side. I really do. I'm kind of hoping it gets out to plus 150. I see Johnson has been taking some money, but it's just I do see why people like Michael Johnson. Like Alan Patrick has not looked good in a long time. But I think if he's ever going to win another UFC fight, you couldn't give him a better opponent than Michael Johnson. So I might take the stab. Luke, what do you think?
Hey, right after a Charles Oliveira win, too.
Yeah, it's Brazil season here. At least until the shoot fight.
We're really just grasping at straws for this one.
Yes.
No, it's Brazil season.
Yeah, we're going full narrative here.
Yeah. No, I'm not even going to pretend to have like a strong take on this fight. What I will say, like, I think stylistically and on paper, Michael Johnson should fuck him up. I'm sorry. Like, I really think he should. Most guys historically have.
But why are you not betting Michael Johnson?
All right, as the lead, there's the lead-in. I'm not betting Michael Johnson for the reason everybody knows is that Michael Johnson is one of the biggest collapsers ever. And it's so ironic that you have a guy who can go out there, knock out a guy like Dustin Poirier, beat a guy like Tony Ferguson over the course, beat a guy like Edson Barboza, and they go lose to fucking Stevie Ray. I had money on Michael Johnson over Stevie Ray. I will never forgive that motherfucker for losing that fight. He blew that. He had every single tool in the world to win that fight, and he completely blew it, even though I think he very well could have gotten the nod in that fight nonetheless.
He should have won that. He should have gotten the nod.
He probably should have, but nonetheless, he made that more difficult than it needed to be, is my general point. So honestly, I get where you guys are coming from. The fade, the Michael Johnson collapse, but I guess, and this is probably where I get myself into some trouble. I just focus so much on the stylistics of this fight. I just don't think Patrick's going to be able to go out there and wrestle fuck him. He doesn't push really any consistent pace. You know, he's shown to be hittable more so in recent years. And I've been on record, and it pains me to say it, given where we're at right now in 2022 and the dynamic of Michael Johnson. I think Michael Johnson actually has one of the best jabs in the UFC.
He's a great boxer.
I think he does. And
I've
said it for years. I think the guy has one of the best jabs in the UFC, irregardless of weight class.
Michael Johnson, it's like if you reran Michael Johnson's career 100 times, this is probably the lower 10% of outcomes, like what we've actually seen, you know?
It's just frustrating for the guy. I don't think I bet him against Moises. I think I came close to betting against Moises. But I mean, he was piecing the shit out of Moises.
He landed one strike! Moises landed one strike in 5.5 minutes!
Leg lock. And then, yeah. So, I mean, this to me, I know, John, that, and maybe even you lags might be getting involved, but not calling you on it, but I'm going to call you on it. This is the one. This is a 1-800 gambler fight. I don't fucking want my money anywhere near this one. I don't care. You want to talk about variance? Great, but my actual official prediction is Michael Johnson by knockout. Bennett Sanford, he's got his back against the wall. Actually, he might not have his back against the wall. I think I was reading that they might have actually given him another 4-fight deal. So I don't think he might have his back against the wall. Hey, hashtag bet on Patrick. Now that I think about it, yeah, fuck this fight.
So Michael Johnson's gonna finish his career in the UFC 19-21. Is that what you're telling me?
He might break Chase Sherman's record in recent years of losing. So
he's what 3-9 in his 12 UFC fights.
No,
I think that's what I read. I think that's what I read.
Maybe in his last 12 fights.
Yeah, his last 12. That's what I was.
Because Michael Johnson's got a ton of good wins.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I'm looking at his topology right now. Like, what the fuck?
Last 12.
Andre Feely, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, Gleison Tebow, Joe Lozon, Tony Ferguson, all W's. Darren Elkins, Thiago Moises, not so much. It's just insane. Stevie Ray. I can't make it up.
And last thing before we get off this shit Michael Johnson train. I watched his season of Tough, and he came off of Tough and he lost to fucking Jonathan Brookins. I was like, dude, what the fuck, Michael Johnson? like that should right there have been like the planted seed of the rest of Michael Johnson's career.
Dude, he
goes on top and he loses to Jonathan Brookins right after.
I don't like talking about like quitters and stuff, but like just watch the Justin Gaethje fight. Like I know he was gassed, but he flat out quit in the fight. He was just like, okay, I've had enough. I'm just gonna sit here and take a knee and we're done. It's in a fight that he was mostly winning for most of it.
He looked good. He looked good in that first half of that fight.
He did. Anyway, moving on. We got Viviane Araujo, she's taking on Andrea KGB Lee. I like Lee a good bit this week. I have 2 units on her, -110. I don't know. I'm more – I mean, I did win a lot of money on Andrea Lee in her last fight, but I've also lost a lot of money on Andrea Lee over the years. I am very pro Lee generally, though. I think she has all the tools. It's just really a matter of her fight IQ more than anything else. Like not throwing spinning back fists when you're – 2 minutes from closing out Roxanne Modafferi and getting taken down off of it. but largely she's good everywhere. She keeps a ridiculous pace. She's got a very diverse striking kit. She's a very good boxer, and she can grapple. And she has good cardio. And she's taken on Vivi, who Vivi's good. She obviously has great physicality for WMMA, good leg kick game. She's a decent grappler. But at the end of the day, she has virtually no striking defense at all if you're in the pocket with her. I mean, she got out volumed by Montana De La Rosa, which is crazy. She tends to slow down dramatically if the pace is high, which, look, I think she's the kind of woman who can compete with most women in the division on any given day, just on power, athleticism, and ability. But the reality is she kind of needs her fight. She needs the fight to kind of be lower tempo where she can kind of be the one going first, get her game going. And that's just not what she's going to get here. Lee is very, very reliable to push a pace. I think she's the better pocket boxer, to be honest. But, I mean, it's close. But I just ultimately think Vivi probably can't have massive grappling success here. And if she does early, she's very likely to slow down, like we saw with the Chook fight. And if she doesn't, I think Lee's volume is more reliable, and I think her cardio is much more reliable. I just think, I think it'll be competitive in the early parts of this fight, but I think the latter half of the fight is likely to be all Lee. And with that being the case, it's very hard for me to not have Lee in the 60-65% range here. So skill-wise, I think it's fairly close on paper, but cardio and output-wise, I think they both favor Lee fairly dramatically. I'm not going huge on Lee because Andrea Lee has an uncanny ability to lose close decisions, but I just think I have to take the shot here. Luke, what do you think?
So I have really no strong opinion on this fight, but I will disagree on a few points. I actually would say that Andrea Lee's I would say Andrea Lee's probably the better pocket boxer than Araujo, and I'd favor Araujo at range personally. And that's where I look at it is I think that Araujo is going to have a healthy amount of success early. I mean, you look at the striking defense numbers of Andrea Lee and they look great, but she's one of these stick in the mud type of girls where she's, she will move her head, but she doesn't use a lot of footwork outside of outside, very robotic, stationary, circle off type of things where we've seen Vivi move a lot more. And I think that's going to give Andrea Lee a lot of troubles, but for a lot of the reasons you mentioned at the same time, she's shown in multiple fights that she just cannot sustain a consistent pace over the course of 15 minutes. But it's kind of weird with her because if you go back, her cardio, in my opinion, looked fine in the Montana De La Rosa fight. There's been a couple other fights where it's looked fine, but it looked horrible in the Jessica Ai fight. It looked horrible in the Caitlin Chookagian fight. So it's I don't know what
Davis
the girls
fight was pretty bad too.
What's that?
The Alexis Davis fight, it was pretty bad too.
Yeah, where she got the takedown and then got reversed and couldn't stand back up. That did not look great either. I can see that. But honestly, I am picking Araujo just because what I don't like from Lee is because she can get taken down at very opportunistic times in fights, and it's happened multiple times. She shouldn't have lost the Murphy fight. I'm still of that opinion, but nonetheless, it was takedowns. It was takedowns at the end of the round as to why it was scored that way, whether I agree or not. She probably should have not lost the Roxy fight. I had a decent sized bet on Lee there. Actually, I had a decent sized bet. I bet Lee a lot, and she's burned me a decent amount at the same time. So I don't like that, and I do think Vivi is the better wrestler in this fight. It's just that she doesn't have great control components. So ultimately what I'm getting to, I think there's just going to be a pivot point. And where I'm struggling is when the pivot point happens, right? Because I actually think Vivi's very live to win the first half of this fight. Because I do think she's actually the better striker. She moves much better when she's fresh. She's more technical. I think she hits harder. She has more wrestling upside. She stuffs takedowns at an elite percentage. So I think that once again stuffs anything from the Lee winning minute side most likely. But it's when that pivot point happens, and I don't know when that is. And the third round could get very late if Vivi slows. But like I said, there's been other fights where she has looked fine, even in higher output affairs. Her cardio has looked fine. So I just don't know what the deal with the girl is personally, but I understand all of your points, John. I don't really hate anybody betting Lee, but I'm going to pick Araujo to win a close split decision.
The other thing I forgot to like, the other thing is like Lee hits the body a ton, and that, you know, combined with the pace she pushes, you would think would be a recipe for Araujo too slow in this fight, you know. But Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is the fact that, like Luke touched on there, I think Araujo does have the grappling upside here, but like if she does go to it, I think she's very reliable to gas out. So on the feet, I think it's probably competitive early, like you guys touched on, like first 7.5, 8 minutes. But I guess it depends on really what kind of game plan Vivi really takes, if she's trying to push a grappling heavy pace or not, really. Because I think this is more of a pick 'em fight. I think both girls are going to be competitive on the feet, and I think both girls could, in theory, have grappling success.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Lags, too, because it's like the Chook, like Luke was touching on it a bit. Her cardio is weird because, like, even rewatching the Chook fight, like, she didn't push much of a pace early. And then when she got her down in round 2, it wasn't as if she was burning a a lot of energy on the mat. You know, she basically.
And then she got up and she was like
dead.
Spent,
she was done. Yeah, it was very, very bizarre. You know, so it is hard to say, but like I feel like I kind of feel like she didn't slow in the De La Rosa fight just because the offense De La Rosa was landing wasn't very meaningful. You know, it was stay on the back foot and try to counter her, which I don't know who told Montana to fight like that. But anyway, moving on here. We got a fun one. Jake Hadley, he's making his UFC debut. He beat Mitch Raposo on Contenders. He's taking on Alan Nascimento, who's coming off losing a split decision off his back to Tagir Ulanbekov. Luke, what are your thoughts here?
Interesting fight. I'm more so on the side of the Hadley truth crowd, but at the same time, I do think the Nascimento guy kind of gets a bit of a bad rap. I do think he's better than most people give him credit for, but stylistically, the problem I have in the fight is that he will play from his back. He will accept being taken down, and I do think that Jake Hadley is clearly the better wrestler in this fight. You know, he obviously comes from a strong grappling background as well, and I think that's largely where he's going to be able to win minutes. But I would say that Hadley's striking has improved a decent amount. I watched a good chunk of his career in prep for his Contender Series fight, and then obviously for this one as well. But Nascimento's a scrappy fucking dude, man. I mean, you go back and watch his fight with Paiva. We know Paiva, you know, has had some issues recently. We know Paiva, I think, had a top 15 number next to his name at one point. Yeah. Those guys both, you know, went back and forth and traded shots, and, you know, he forced a close fight. So my thing is, like, if this fight's standing, I think it's close, 100%. But I think the difference is the wrestling and the grappling of Hadley. And I do think his grappling is good enough to be defensively responsible, to not get caught in any guard subs, you know, guillotines, any type of deal like that. At the same time, I've seen Nascimento stuck in some deep stuff, and I've seen him work out of a lot of deep stuff. So I think he's a more than competent enough defensive grappler to actually survive. So it's kind of a weird dynamic in the sense both these guys are perennial finishers, perennial grapplers. It's probably going to be a higher pace fight, even on the ground, because we've seen Nascimento, you know, throw elbows, you know, attack those subs. But a play I really do like for this fight actually is the over. I don't think anybody goes out here. Like I said, I think we're going to see some high action on the feet, but both guys haven't shown to be over power threats outside of Hadley kicking that dude in the body. Primarily, you know, it's grappling based wins for both guys. It still is, you know, a moderately lower weight class at 125 too. And I think both guys' defensive grappling is good enough to not get finished here. So I actually like over. My pick is Hadley via decision.
Flags, how about you?
Yeah, coming out of tape, I was also I was thinking Nascimento could be live here, but it's like the guy just plays guard to the point where it's like I don't really want to have money on it here, and so to Luke's point again, I have the over as well. I have a unit and a half on that at minus 158. Yeah, I think Hadley overall, I think he's just pretty green in general. I mean, I rate his wrestling; it's pretty solid. But like, I think Nascimento's fine on the ground here, and I think Hadley's fine and going to be able to stay safe with any submissions he throws up. So yeah, I like the over 2.5 here. Goes the distance.
Yeah, I also like the over, and I like the goes the distance at minus 125. Interestingly enough, I actually In terms of their tools, I actually kind of like Nascimento's tools more than Hadley's. Like, I think Nascimento is a reasonable striker, to be honest. His fight with Paiva on Contenders was awesome. I think if he continues to develop, he actually could be a decent striker in the UFC. Whereas Hadley's striking, I'm a bit more on. I agree with you, Luke. He's improved, but I'm a bit more on the fence of like what his long-term striking upside is. The problem is, and like not to be a broken record, like I think Nascimento has better jiu-jitsu, but I don't think Hadley is the kind of guy who's getting subbed off bottom. And so with that being the case, we need Nascimento to be able to trust that he's going to show us a willingness to get off his back, which we just haven't seen. And as you saw with, the Tagir fight, for instance, we just saw in Tagir's last fight with Tim Elliott. He doesn't have any overtly great control, but Nascimento just seemed happy to attack subs. And I think if this over is going to bust, it's going to be on a Nascimento guard sub, to be honest. I think that's the most likely way it goes down. But is it very likely? I think it's very unlikely, to be honest. And I think it's very unlikely Hadley subs him. I guess from a money line perspective, if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably pick Nascimento just because I do think, he has more interesting tools. But I think we all know the most likely outcome of this fight is Hadley just getting like 11 minutes of top time here. I don't think Hadley's finishing him. I'd be surprised if Nasi subs him. I honestly think Goes the Distance should be like minus 250, to be honest, and Goes the Distance is like minus 125 right now. So I think there's a decent bit of value here. So I'm with you guys. Team over for the win. Moving on, we have an electric fight here. We got Frank Camacho. He's taking on debutant Manuel Torres. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
Not a ton, to be honest, because there's not a ton of footage on the Torres side, and that's kind of where I part ways, really, because the guy's largely a round one or bust type archetype. We don't really know much of him extended. And the problem with Frank I have is his cardio isn't really that great either. So it's like, could Frank win extended minutes here? Potentially. It's just a pass for me. I think it's just I don't know. I don't want any money on it, to be honest.
I like the crank here. I have 2 units on it, plus 130. I am a masochist for losing money on Frank Camacho fights. I bet him once upon a time pretty big against Beneil Dariush. That aged incredibly poorly. But like
you had him against Frivola too, right?
I did. And then I had to
listen to opposite sides of that one, right?
He got knocked out by Janes instead. I was big on him against Frivola, and I had to listen to everybody tell me how after Janes KO'd him, Frivola was clearly the side, as if Frivola hits as hard as Justin Janes does. Like, get the fuck out of
Frivola.
But like, I like Frank as a fighter, to be honest. The cardio is a concern, but I actually think he's an effective gasser, if that makes sense. Like, you watch his fights with like Dober, he loses the decision there, but he threw like 90 strikes in round 3 of that fight, completely gassed out. Like, he'll keep coming. I think he's a pretty good fighter. Look, he's hittable, but he hits pretty hard himself. He keeps a high pace. He's got good kicks. He's got a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, he has very good jiu-jitsu. Like, getting subbed by Beneil Dariush is not something that I'm really putting much stock in. And I think he's a much better grappler in general here. I think he's a better wrestler, and I think he's a better jiu-jitsu player. Torres, like you mentioned, Lags, there's a lack of tape, but like what we saw on Contenders was 2.5 minutes, but I didn't really like the way he moves his head or doesn't move his head. He seems very hittable. The other data we have is him getting heel hooked twice by 2 bums in like fairly recent times. There isn't a lot of tape, but it's like we have this guy from this dog shit gym that Brandon Moreno just left in Mexico. Left it for a reason, guys. I got news for you. And he's fought basically no one. He's gotten heel hooked twice by 2 guys who will never sniff the UFC. The minimal tape we have of him striking, he has very little defense. And he's largely been, to your point, Lags, like a round 1 type of guy. So it's like we haven't seen him extended. So there's not really much evidence that, he can go far or can go deep into fights. And on the other side, it's like, yeah, Camacho gasses, but it's like Camacho had a close fight with Drew Dober. He at least competed early with Jeff Neal. He put the fear of God into Li Jingliang at welterweight, It's just like, this is a guy who's been fighting very good fighters and somewhat competing with them, and now he is being priced as a dog or evens with a guy like Manuel Torres, who has fought literally no one and has already shown us that he's a pretty shit grappler. Like, there's a lot of unknowns here, but I would be legitimately shocked if Manuel Torres ends up being like a good UFC fighter. And so, like, I'm pretty happy to take like, the guy with like 4x the fights who's fought real people in Frank Camacho here. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty big pass for me, but I completely understand everything you said. If I was to bet this fight, I'd be betting Camacho based in a lot of ways to the Candelario type of take. Obviously, a tad bit different because we have a little bit more on Taura, but yeah, I mean, there's a very good argument why Camacho could be a very heavy favorite in this fight. It's just there's just not enough data for me to really say much, but I think at this point we know what we're going to get from Frank Camacho and the defense of Frank Camacho. I mean, 4 of his 5 UFC losses, people look at, the guy's 2-5 in the UFC, 4 of his 5 UFC losses come to like top, 30 guys at 155
or top 3 in some cases with a star huge, like it's.
I know I was casting the wide net.
Yeah.
It's casting but no, so it's like his losses really aren't that bad. And, but then again, fighting, competitively with Damian Beatdown Brown doesn't look great either. but nonetheless, dogger pass 100%. I cannot hate on anybody taking a shot on Frank Camacho.
Yeah, we roll with Camacho this week. Moving on, I think we got some takes here. We got Katlyn Chookagian. She's coming back. She's on a bit of a roll here, looking to get another fight with Valentina. Taking on Amanda Ribas, who bizarrely is moving up to 125 here. Lags, what do you think about this fight?
To start off with that point, I don't think it's a smart move for Ribas moving up. I think this is your classic choke by decision type of performance here. To me, I just don't think. I think the Ribas most of her takedowns, it's upper bodies, it's trips. I just don't think that's going to really work on. Like, Chook is a decent defensive grappler. I know takedown defense doesn't look great and all that, but I don't think Ribas is some excellent grappler wrestler that's going to be shooting, single legs, double legs, and whatnot, getting her down. So I think Ribas honestly pieces her up on the feet. I think Chook pieces her up. Sorry, Chook pieces her up on the feet. I think this is your classic Chook decision on the feet. So 30-27, 29-28. I think this is a pretty dominant decision on the feet. So I have a unit and a half plus 110.
Yeah, I mean, I have Chook minus 150 here. It is starting to get a bit mushy. There's a lot more people loving Chook here than I would like. It's making me a bit uncomfortable. But the reality is, like, first of all, I don't really understand why Ribas is doing this. She's 5'3". She is not, a big strawweight, and now she's moving up to 125 against a huge flyweight, and Chookagian, who's 5'9" with a much longer reach. You touched on it a bit, Lags, but like, it's not easy. First of all, I mean, we look at Lupi Godinez, for instance. We know Lupi is a great wrestler. She fought Luana Carolina, who's a pretty bad wrestler, but who is very big for flyweight and struggled badly to get her down. You know why? Because we have weight classes for a reason. It is not easy to take down someone who is a lot bigger than you, especially with, the kind of takedowns, as you mentioned, that Ribas likes to go to, the upper body stuff. It is very, very hard to take down someone for the upper body takedown who's considerably taller than you. Just the balance and leverage is just a lot harder to throw off if you're shorter than them. Could she do it? Yeah. Could she have big success on the mat? I suppose, but like, I don't really think Chook's a bad grappler on bottom, to be honest. It's like she looked bad against Valentina Shevchenko. Are we really going to hold that against her? Andrade took her down and she got right back up. I know Andrade finished her, but Andrade is a fucking animal, man. Like, that is not, like, it is a different level of physicality than Amanda Ribas. And striking, Ribas is a decent striker, but like, I kind of think her metrics kind of don't really represent the whole truth. It's like you look at the women that she's fought with on the feet, and it's like Verna Jandiroba, Randa Marcos, Mackenzie Dern. She's really not fighting the cream of the crop when striking fights. The only really good fighter she's fought, who is a good stand-up fighter, is Marina, who KO'd her. Am I saying she KOs her? No, though Poliana Viana KO'd her regionally, so maybe. Verna hurt her, so maybe. But I feel pretty comfortable saying Chook's a better striker here by a decent margin. She's a bigger woman. She has more reach. She's got as reliable volume. I think Ribas is going to have a very hard time closing the distance. I think she's going to have a tough time dealing with the size in general. Could we be wrong? Yeah, like I said, I'm a little worried how many people agree with our take on it. But, I have to bet Chookagian minus 155. Minus 180, it's getting to a place that I don't know that I would bet her. But the decision number is not bad.
I'm still behind. Sorry, I guess the last thing I'll say, I'm still behind the whole Chook does not have power here. I don't really get the whole. I get Ribas is chinny. Oh, she's been dropped a few times. She was dropped by Verna, but Chook does not have power to drop her, and nor should you be playing the knockout prop at 4-1. It's sitting at.
So. No. I would have played Chook KO at like plus 1,000 or plus 1,200.
You would have to give me something like that. There's no way. Yeah.
I don't even think 4-1 is accurate. I honestly think it's probably less than that. Luke, what do you think?
All right, pitchforks. I think Chookagian knocks her out. I'm like somewhat kidding, but I'm not at the same time. Once again, it's not something I'm playing. But yes, I do have a large bet on Chook just in general. But I don't think it can be ignored. Girl's been knocked out in both of her fucking losses. She's getting dropped by a jiu-jitsu girl who can't fucking strike, right? Like Chook's going to fucking throw volume at her. And the thing with Ribas is despite all of her excellent metrics, like if you look at like in a vacuum, you look at Amanda Ribas metrics, striking, wrestling, you're in like heaven as a stat guy. All of her metrics are phenomenal. But when she's fighting a girl like Chookagian who's going to throw this kind of volume, at the end of the day, if she wants to win, it depends on what she's going to do. Obviously, she's probably going to try to wrestle, but she's going to have to close distance, right? She does not move her head when she's throwing her strikes at all. There's zero head movement there in any of these fights. I think Chook could ding her 100%. Once again, not necessarily official prediction, probably Chook decision, but I do think it's live that she could fucking clip her. Nonetheless, I love your point, John. There are weight classes for a reason because I think some people might get too wrapped up in to some of the historics and stylistics and say, okay, Chook's takedown defense is not great. Ribas is going to attempt takedowns. Therefore, Chookagian shouldn't be this big of a favorite. This girl's, hashtag live. But you brought up an excellent reference point. Lupita Godinez, she goes up there and fights Luana Carolina. Lupita Godinez is a great wrestler at this level of the division. Luana Carolina is a fucking Muay Thai girl. She's a Muay Thai girl at the end of the day. She went like 1 for 15 on takedowns. Why? Because she was too big. Even when we saw Kay Hansen fight Jasmine Jasdavicius. Kay Hansen, historically, decent wrestler at the point. I know this is going to sound terrible given her getting cut, but at the point, decent wrestler that's a game that she has gone to. And what happens? She ends up getting out grappled because the other girl in Jasdavicius is just much stronger than her. Kay Hansen, minus 220 favorite in that spot. So it's another fight where like people assume just because Amanda Ribas, good takedown metrics. She shoots takedowns. Chookagian's takedown defense, not great. Therefore, Ribas going to land takedowns. I got a rude awakening for you guys. It's just not going to happen. And even if she does get taken out, I think Chook stands up pretty easily, if I'm being completely honest, unless she's just a dumbass and wants to sit there and play guard. But outside of that, I think she's going to be able to stand up. Weight classes for a reason. And when Ribas, and at least in terms of striking, and when you look at how she's having success, one, she hasn't fought any good strikers outside of Emrod. You touched on that, John, right? She's beating up girls who don't have good striking. Chook is an elite level striker in the division and a girl who is not going to stand in front of you, right? Ribas is a girl who I do value her striking to an extent at a certain level, but not at this type of a level, right? If Chook just sat there and just traded in the pocket with her, maybe it's a different story, but Chook doesn't fight that way, right? Ribas is a girl who needs to go and stand in front of people so she can get off on her kicks and get off on her boxing. Chookagian's not going to do that. She's going to be on her bike for 15 minutes. So I don't see a ton of merit to Ribas takedowns. Even if she gets them, I don't think she has much success. I don't see much merit to Ribas striking because Chookagian's going to be on her bike. And she's dealt well with much better strikers than Amanda Ribas at a bigger weight class. So I think Chookagian's like 75, 80% in this fight, to be completely honest.
I also think if you look at Maya fight, Chook gets a lot of shit for just screaming and not making much contact, but like she was sitting Dude, she was sitting down in her shots in both the Vivi fight and the Maya fight a lot more. If you watch, I actually think I'm not going to make a case for her like challenging Valentina, but like I actually think Chook's striking and the physicality of it has improved quite a bit over her last couple fights here. I think she's going to handle Fraud Boss, to be honest. Moving on though, we got a good one here. We got it should be exciting for as long as it lasts. We got Louis Smolka. He's taking on Davy Grant. I actually have a decent sized bet on Smolka here. Second fight in a row of Smolka's. Actually, it might be. I've bet Louis Smolka a lot, and often to my own detriment. I've also bet Davy Grant a lot. I feel like I have a pretty good read on both of their games. Although maybe not, since I bet Smolka huge against Vince Morales, so maybe not the best read. But nonetheless, I kind of think, this line is insane. I kind of think it's being placed where it is because the most recent memories people have of Davy Grant is him nuking Jonathan Martinez and nuking Martin Day, and just kind of making an assumption that at 36 years old, Davy Grant has somehow, found the fountain of youth and found power, when instead of, taking maybe the better assumption that he KO'd Jonathan Martinez, who's a tad fragile, and just clipped him, and he KO'd Martin Day, he's not in the UFC anymore. Look, with that being said, Davy Grant will come forward and he will throw fire and throw a lot of volume, but it's like, this is not a guy who, for the majority of his career, was considered to be a big KO artist. Like, the farthest thing from it. Most people considered him kind of like just like one of these British wrestlers. And Smolka on the other side, it's like, I get it. He's been hurt in a bunch of fights. He's tall. He can have tall man's defense. But, like, again, not a guy who's been KO'd a ton throughout his career. And even flipping back to the other side, Davy Grant has gotten hurt in like each of his last 4 fights, like bad in every one of those fights. And on the Smolka side, it's just like, look, Smolka, I know what I'm getting, man. I saw someone said to me today, Smolka is not reliable. The thing is, I would argue Smolka is very reliable to do exactly what you see on tape from him. He's going to come forward. He's going to throw a lot of volume. He's going to try to make some takedowns if he can and submit you. And if not, he's going to keep pushing that pace. He's got decent cardio. I just kind of look at this fight as a fight that's fairly likely to turn into a brawl. I know Smolka doesn't have the best chin, but I don't think Davy Grant does. And I think Smolka isn't exactly a light hitter. He has more than enough power to hurt Grant here. And so I think it's competitive. I think Smolka, to be honest, even though Grant's probably the better wrestler, I think if any of them is going to have big grappling upside here, it's Smolka, because I really don't think Grant's going to want to mess around with Smolka on the mat, whereas I think Smolka will be happy to take it there. And on the feet, I kind of think I guess I give Grant a bit more KO upside than Smolka does, but I also think Smolka is much more likely to win later rounds in this fight. Grant will slow down in high paces. Our boy C said this earlier, and he nailed it. People forget, but we're like a year and a half removed from Davy Grant going to a split decision with Grigori Popov, and now he's like minus 300 against Louis Smolka. I think this is closer to evens, maybe slight lean to Grant, just on Grant having probably better KO upside here and can probably match the pace to a degree. But I don't see how Grant minus 300 makes any sense whatsoever. Luke, what do you think?
I guess probably a stronger, different take. I kind of think that Davy Grant fucks him up, to be completely honest. But at the same time, I've been very anti-Davy Grant. I bet Martin Day against him. I bet Jonathan Martinez against him. I bet Adrian Yanez against him. So, I mean, like I said, I've been pretty anti-Davy Grant over the years. But the thing is I think that he's going to go out there and maximize his general win equity and what he's been doing consistently. He's going to go out there and throw strikes. Once again, I am not making the case as to why you should lay minus 300 on Davy Grant, why he's a good parlay piece or anything like that. I am actually more so making the case as to why I think the under is an excellent bet for this fight. I think you're going to get a ton of action on the feet. We've seen Smolka also fall in love with his hands in recent years. He's going to go out there and dig the body, but he's, since moved up to 125, his striking defense sucks. It's not good. I think he's at speed disadvantages despite even coming up which I think is concerning. He does not tend to get his hands up after he's throwing his shots at the same time. But on the flip side, Davy Grant's been submitted in 4 of his 6 UFC losses, and we know that Luis Smolka thrives in the scrambles, like your Brandon Rivals and your Tim Elliott's in some perspective. And if Davy Grant's going to sit there and play down there with Luis Smolka, I think he could very well get submitted. So once again, I'm more so on the side of Davy Grant KO, but I think there's multiple paths to finish in this fight, and I think it's a pretty short price on it to finish.
Fair. Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm more so on the Davy Grant KO as well, but it's like Davy's taken so much damage in his last few fights that it's tough to really, like you said, get to this kind of price tag. I'm more so on the under as well, but again, I don't love the price on that either. So for me, it's a pass, but I think balance is a good bet here.
Yeah, fair. Moving on, we have a weird co-main. I don't know why the UFC insists on pushing Ryan Spann co-main events down our throat.
I'm here for
and I think he had a main event, didn't he, against Anthony Smith? Am I not mistaken?
And I cashed on that too.
It's very it's one of these weird things where I'm like, who the fuck at the UFC? Someone somewhere is watching Ryan Spann fights and being like, we need to push this guy. This guy's a star. I'd like that guy's job. Luke would like that guy's job. You'd like that guy's job because I don't understand it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of passion about this fight, to be honest. Cutaiba should beat him. He's a much better grappler. Spann tends to wilt when guys take the fight to him, but also Cutaiba has a horrendous gas tank. He tends to empty the clip in a round and then be done. Except for last fight, apparently, where he won a unanimous 30-27 decision against Devin Clark. But I do think part of that fight was his ability to kind of rest on top of Clark, which honestly gets me to here. Look, Spann obviously has the power to knock him out. I don't think, despite Spann winning 11 of 19 fights by submission, I don't think he has much chance to submit Cutaiba, if I'm being honest. Actually, Cutaiba's a pretty good grappler. But I kind of like the over because Cutaiba, if he stands at range with Spann here, he is really just playing into what Spann's, basically Spann's path to win here is Cutaiba standing in range and getting nuked. And that is pretty live if he stands at range. And if he grapples, I mean, Cutaiba seems pretty happy to kind of sit on top, that seems kind of to make up a great dynamic for an over here, especially when you combine that with the fact that if Cutaiba doesn't get him out of there early, he's probably going to be tired and just look to rest there. And so I kind of like the over 1.5 here. I don't want to say I really like, but I'm probably going to take a poke at the goes the distance at plus 300, as nuts as that sound. I mean, Jan Cutaiba made it to a fucking decision with Dustin Jacoby. That should it be plus 300? I don't know. But again, I don't have strong feelings on the fight. I just kind of think if Cutaiba's intelligent, and he has grappled a lot more recently. He attempted 12 takedowns against Jacoby. He attempted a bunch against Clark. I think if he takes that path, I certainly don't think this fight finishing is minus 400 by any means. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, another really weird fight. To me, it kind of comes down to what the general Jesus Christ, Cutaiba approaches, because I guess he is in the States now at XC full time, where he's at an actual camp, and I think they're probably trying to prime him for some actual game plans. I thought he looked pretty good in the Devin Clark fight. I thought he fought a more composed game plan in a lot of ways than just going completely nuts like he has in a lot of his fights. So I do think there's been some maturation there. Spann, I can't really get that Henrique fight out of my head where he was taken down 4 times or whatever. He was able to reverse position, but it was more so on the product of Henrique just gassing, and that's why he won. If Henrique didn't gas, he probably would have lost via wrestling. Once again, it was a second ago, but it's probably one of the larger sample sizes we have in recent years. He did do actually a good job in regards to Spann of stuffing takedowns from Devin Clark and actually working up there. I think it was his 3rd attempt. It was actually really beautiful takedown defense if you go back and watch that sequence. So He's not an incompetent defensive wrestler. So I don't think it's as easy to say, Cutaiba comes out here and shoots takedowns. He just runs through Ryan Spann necessarily. But Spann is a guy I've just never had like a great gauge on. And I've always been honestly more so on the opinion that he's kind of a fraud. He's just more of like a big guy that's an athlete who's going to have size advantages, who hits hard, has a nice guillotine, which I think he might be able to guillotine Cutaiba. I think he might be able to clip him because Cutaiba's striking defense really isn't any good either. Cutaiba has gas tank issues too. So I don't know. Like it's just kind of a weird spot for me where like Cutaiba over -200, like that just gives me a little bit of meh.
Especially when it's like Smith was -1. Like Cutaiba deserves to be a bigger favorite than Anthony Smith was. Like,
yeah, and I mean, I laid the wood on Anthony Smith when Bet Online dropped that shit down and like pick him right at fight time. That was insane. So I don't know. It's just kind of a weird fight. I'm not going to say it's like a dogger pass, because I don't trust Ryan Spann at all. Like he doesn't push any pace. He's flat-footed. Like
he's KO'd by elbows multiple times.
Multiple times. Like so, it's like I don't like Ryan Spann at all. But he has done some things at the same time. And when it comes to the total is interesting to me too, because I think you can make a substantial argument as to why the under 1.5 is value. But once again, I think if Cutaiba fights a bit slower, and I know we had a slight disagreement about this in the chat likes, I think there's a chance he could fight more conservative here in that case. And even if he does and gets Spann down, and I don't necessarily think gets Spann down with ease, and if he does he just go crazy with ground and pound? Can he submit Spann? I'm not necessarily convinced. So I could see this going over here too. So ultimately, horrible analysis on my part. I could see a ton of different shit happening here. It's a really weird fight. So I'd be more inclined to look to plus numbers, whichever way you're looking, because I see a lot of volatility.
Lags, what about you?
All right. Well, I guess I'll make the different opinion here. So I guess to start off, we were talking about with the Anthony Smith fight. I laid the wood there on the under there because I knew that Smith was going to bring a dog fight to him and just push a hell of a pace, really. I mean, and that's kind of the thing here in the first round. I mean, Cutaiba 10-8'd Dustin Jacoby, almost got him out of there. He 10-8'd Devin Clark, almost got him out of there. Spann is a horrible, horrible nail. And I think that if Cutaiba just brings that pace early that he always is reliable to do, I think he gets him out of there at a high clip, to be honest with you. I know he slows down in rounds 2 and 3, but the amount of power and the fire that he brings early, I think -135 for the under 1.5. I think it's a good spot. So I got a unit and a half on that.
I will say I almost think like goes the distance is better than over, just because I kind of think if it gets through the early part of the fight, it's probably going to go the distance, like.
And you'd rather have plus 300 than plus what 115, 140, 115. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Like because if it gets out of the first 6 minutes, like Spann doesn't exactly cover himself in glory in the cardio department either. Like if he gets
not Lance Armstrong. Yeah.
No, dude. I'd be Spann gassing out against Sam Alvey in one of the slowest pace fights in history. Like, dude, Ryan Spann, he is so bad, man. Like,
that's why to me, man, I just think the under is a better play than the over. I don't know. Maybe I'll be eating this shit here, but I like the under a lot here.
It's so funny because when Spann wins spectacularly, there's always a party that's like, that's interesting. He looked really good doing that. But then it's like every other data point of his career is like, not only is this guy a flake, but he has no cardio. It is.
And you just got safe side. You just yell at every single exchange. Damn it, Ryan! Damn it.
Dude, I mean, he literally killed Johnny Walker. He killed him twice. Johnny Walker died twice, and Ryan Spann decided to attempt a takedown. Like, what the actual fuck, It makes no sense. But, yeah. Moving on, we have, honestly, like, I have a feeling this fight could go in terms of entertainment value either way here, depending on a couple of variables. But we got Jan Blachowicz, former 205-pound champion. He's an underdog here to Alexander Rakic. Lags, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually think this is going to be a pretty boring main event, to be honest. I don't have too strong a takes, but I kind of more so lean the over 3.5 here, around that even number. I think that Rakic just plays that outside game super well. Those leg kicks. I think he has a grappling upside here too. I don't know. To be honest with you, I think the Rakic, as wide of a favorite is now, I think it's getting a bit much, but I see the angle on Rakic. I think minus 160, minus 170 was fine, but we're getting a little too wide. So yeah, it's a pass for me.
So I'll be honest, like I had planned to have like a good size play on Jan, and then I was listening to Narco did a preview on Spaces last night, and he mentioned that Jan had neck surgery apparently, or has multiple
He did.
herniated.
He pulled because I think he pulled out of the. I don't remember what. I thought there was a fight that he pulled out of recently
Yeah, and he
because of
needs
that.
neck surgery apparently, or he hasn't had it, but he needs it, and like that's a
I can look that up.
38-year-old, yeah, at this weight class. That's kind of, especially against a guy that's as explosive as Rakic is, that's kind of concerning. And so I don't know that I might still bet Jan, but it won't be big if I do. I don't know. I kind of think on paper, I feel like if you like Rakic, I have to assume that like you think he's gonna have like substantial wrestling success. I guess for me, the problem is I can see that. Like I can see, yeah, because Jan does accept guard, and I can see him getting stuck on bottom. But I'm just not sure how much I rate Rakic's wrestling. Jan is not one of these guys who like bad grapplers are taking him down. He fought. We saw Jacare Souza try to take him down as hard as he could and couldn't get him down. Granted, up a weight class. Luke Rockhold, same thing, also up a weight class. But like the only guys who really maul Jan on the mat are Corey Anderson and Glover. I mean, Corey Anderson, in my opinion, would wear Rakic like a hat. Like I think he is one of the, if not the best 205ers on earth. And Glover's obviously the champion. And like I said it on Narco Spaces last night, but like stick Glover on top of Rakic and watch what happens. The guy's got one of the most punishing top games there is. But with that said, I do think if Rakic gets on top, he can there's a decent chance he can control him for a round. What I'm just not really buying is Rakic, first of all, he's never gone 5 rounds. Does he have the cardio to attempt 15 or so takedowns here? I don't really know. You're telling me he's going to land 4 or 5 takedowns in this fight? The only time he's landed 3 in his career is the Justin Ledet fight. So again, I'm not really sure. Like we're 2 fights removed from him fighting, or 1 fight removed from him fighting Thiago Santos, who in theory, grappling Santos should be one of the easiest paths to victory, and he basically didn't grapple at all. And so I think Jan has decent takedown defense, to be honest. So I don't really think takedowns are a given, and I don't think he's going to dominate this on the mat. And I kind of think standing, like, I know everybody looks at how explosive Rakic is on the feet, but like people forget, like Jan outstruck Izzy at distance. First of all, the guy checks kicks. Not many guys in the UFC check kicks. Jan checks just about every kick you throw at him. So that's one of Rakic's best weapons, is likely going to be off the table pretty much right away. Rakic is more explosive and he's faster, but is he a better pocket boxer? I don't really think so, to be honest. Like I think on the feet it's competitive. I think Rakic may be more reliable volume, but I kind of would slightly lean Jan there. And again, like I really don't think Rakic is going to have huge grappling success. Like I don't think Volkan has much better takedown defense than Jan does. And Rakic did try to wrestle him and went 1 of 9 that fight. So yeah, like I think all things being equal, I think the line is very, very off here. I didn't think Rakic looked great against Santos, and I think that version of him, Blachowicz, probably beats him. But the injury, plus he's 38, I don't know. That makes me nervous. I might still poke him. I'm watching the line. But to me, Jan's the only side you can play here. Luke, what do you think?
Another weird fight. I do think Rakic deserves to be favored for the potential wrestling upside. But yeah, I mean, when this fight is standing, I can't really have any other opinion to say that it's close. I mean, once again, that Santos fight, it was largely a staring contest, pitter patter, where actually Santos technically outlanded him, but the bigger shots did come from Rakic where he did a bit more, and he did slow a bit against Vulcan as well. But the problem with Jan is he's pretty consistent to take the back foot. And I think Rakic is the better athlete. I think he's a bit quicker. I think he has a bit more tools, but he does have some poor tendencies when he enters at times, which I picked up on a little bit. He doesn't do it all the time, but there are some poor tendencies when he gets in there and he does not always get his hands up quicker as he should. And Blachowicz is a pretty strong counter striker, man. You got to mind your P's and Q's with a guy like Jan. So it's one of those fights where I don't know how much value you can really extract out of it. I sure as shit I'm not playing Rakic at minus 190. But I don't think there's much meat on the bone with Jan either, because he's just another one of these weird guys. It's like, how confident are you if this goes a full 5 rounds that he's going to win you a decision? And even if he does, and you're playing Jan, plus 260 wins, okay, obviously decent bet, but it's like, I would still favor Rakic probably 65, 70, maybe 75% decision if it hits there, right? So that's tough. If I was to play the fight, to be honest, I would actually just more so look to the over, because I do think it's going to be a slower paced fight. I do think there's going to be some feeling out process, but it's one of those sweaty ass fights, man. Jan hits hard. Rakic has his defensive inefficiencies.
What happens if Jan gets on top of him?
We don't know.
Right. Like, like that. That's
yeah. So it's another component where it's like, am I clamoring to lay an over on 2 guys who hit hard, who at least in Jan has looked fucking horrible on bottom historically? We don't know what Rakic looks like on bottom. Am I willing to do that at 205? For me, no. It's so boring answer. Boring answer. It's a pass. My pick is Rakic by decision, but it's hard to ignore that Jan was a minus, whether you agree or disagree. Obviously, hindsight 2020, the result happened. I mean, the guy was a big favorite over Golovachera, right?
Yeah.
He's a big favorite over Golovachera. Because now he's a dog. And historically, Jan has been, at least at the betting window, one of the most undervalued fighters in the history of the UFC. That's just not disputable. The guy's consistently an underdog. He's consistently undervalued, and he consistently outperforms his price tag. So if there's a guy, at least from a Gianni the Greek perspective, a trend perspective, a narrative perspective that you're looking to back, it's a guy like Jan Blachowicz, right? The guy's got power. He's going to fight for your money to some extent, depending on how you look at it. So I'd be much more inclined to back Jan on the money line. He's just a horrible minute winner.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, let's go for it.
So I did find a little bit of an article that's a little interesting. So he was talking in camp. He took a shot to the guard, and then he said, I felt completely off, paralyzed, think it was not normal pain. Then he had the MRI, which found out with the disc. And then this part I think was a little bit interesting. Obviously, it said the doctor said after 3 weeks if you need surgery, and then we'll just be doing rehab. But for the meantime, they're just giving him medicine and giving him some medicine in his neck for 4 weeks of rehab and ready to start training again. So this is at the end of May, or the end of April, I should say. Sorry, like April 30th. And he said,
like
I can
this
train
year, like April 30th,
yes.
2022.
Yes. Let me look at that again. So yes, April 29th, 2022. And he said, I can train with that, but only light technique, no sparring sessions, nothing hard, just pads, bikes, bags, running, something like that, nothing hard. 4 weeks of easy training. And after 4 weeks of rehab, I'm back to the gym, started doing sparring sessions, everything at 100%. Now I'm healthy. I don't feel pain. I feel good.
So this happened like a couple months ago.
Like 2 weeks ago.
No, the article did.
April.
But like,
the article,
yeah. But yeah,
that's not encouraging.
No, it's pretty. It's pretty hard to make a bet on him with that. I don't think I could do it, to be honest. That's like, especially because it probably amplifies the athleticism difference, which I think is fairly substantial, if we're being honest. Yeah, I think it's a pass for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Good luck on your bets this weekend. Hopefully we'll make some more money and roll it into next week's, where we got a electric UFC Fight Night with Ketlin Vieira taking on Holly Holm. Can't wait to break that one down. Again, guys, every Wednesday night, check us out, 10 p.m. Eastern. Drop a like and subscribe if you like the show. It would really help us out. As usual, got me, John, at MMA Fox, Luke at SWR_betting, and Lags at Danny_Lags. Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next week.